First, thanks for allowing me to speak a little bit about what I do, but overall, I want to talk really about what the food bank does. But first, just a little bit about myself. I'm a Greeley native. I was born and raised here, but I went to school in Oregon for a couple of years. I got a degree in pastoral ministry and a master's in spiritual formation, but I really had a heart for my community. So when we moved back, although I was pursuing the ministry, I kept my options open. That's kind of one of the big advice I give a lot of college students or students wanting to go into college that are looking at career paths is that never, I guess the word I was thinking about today was don't typecast yourself. So thinking that you've got a degree in a particular field, that's the only field you can go into, that there's other options to be able to utilize your degrees, because mine was definitely in Christian ministry, but the work that we do at the food bank I've been able to utilize my skills there just as well. And actually, I feel a little bit more than I could have at a church just with my passions, because hunger has actually always been one of my passions. I've struggled with it as a young family, being on benefits, and just having a heart for, again, like I said, for my community. I felt that hunger was a big way to try to make an impact in my community. So at the food bank, I started as the volunteer coordinator and then moved my way up to communications manager. And so my job there is to do actually stuff like this, to be kind of the outward face of the food bank, to do everything from publication, graphic design, doing videos like I'm going to show you here in a minute. Just a lot of different ways to try to inform the community about the need of hunger, but then also how to get the community involved, because that's one of the biggest things that we have to do is we have to utilize the community as a 501c3 nonprofit. We have to work on private funding. We do get some government grants, but we have to apply for private grants, and we work with foundations and businesses and individuals and just get everyone not only donating their money, but their time and their resources, because to be able to feed people, we need food to be able to feed them. But I'm just going to give a presentation about the food bank, about the things that we do, and I'm going to start with a video that I put together in April for our major fundraiser, Stone Soup. It is about the 40 years that we've been in existence, because actually last month August marked our 40-year anniversary of serving Weld County. So let me get to that video real quick. Appreciate the patience. Okay. There we go.
A person who has food may have many problems. A person who has no food has one problem.
It was quite obvious that we started to have issues with people having enough food to eat. And then there were other food banks that we were aware of. And so I just took it upon myself to say, I think we need to do something in Greeley to help support a population that is having trouble with being able to put food on the table.
Pam was not the only person aware of the growing issue of hunger in the early 80s.
I don't remember whose idea it was to establish the food bank, but I was excited about it because I knew that people were hungry and didn't have access to food.
Originally known as Greeley Food Clearinghouse, we opened for operation on a hot summer day in mid-August 1982 through the collaborative effort of community leaders and local nonprofit agencies.
We started off so small in the basement of the Salvation Army with one refrigerator that was a regular sized refrigerator. And just started to see what we could do, and then it grew.
Eventually, we received a permanent home at a 1,000 square foot building located at 1305 2nd Street in April 1983. We continued to grow as more nonprofits began partnering with and utilizing our services. Our first year's proposed budget was $6,600, and we had no full-time staff. An average of 10,000 pounds of food went out each month, thanks in large part to local grocery stores.
We had a permanent relation, or more semi-permanent relationship with the grocery stores in town. So if bread was around for too long a period of time, the food bank was a way to get that distributed cheaply, because we really didn't have very much money.
Our warehouse could fit 20 pallets, and food was picked up from donors in an open bed pickup truck. Everything in the building had to be hand stacked, and the cooler for all perishable items was only 10 feet by 7 feet.
I remember when we, first, when the building was in, and we opened the door, and I went, oh my gosh, this is just never going to be filled up. And then it wasn't long after that they had to move to another location.
By the end of the 80s, we were in need of a larger facility. On September 1st, 1990, we moved into the old Stoles Market building at 104 11th Avenue with 10 times more warehouse space. Soon after moving, we changed our name to Weld Food Bank to better reflect the size and scope of our reach. Our operations continued to grow, and we transitioned from pickup trucks to box trucks for all food transportation. As part of our growth, we added more direct services such as the Commodity Supplemental Food Program and Kids Cafe. The more we expanded our services in the community, the more need we discovered. And once again, it became clear we were outgrowing our building, and we undertook the huge endeavor of building a new facility that would fit our growth. In April of 2005, we moved into our current facility, a 36,500 square foot warehouse space. Change continued after the move to a larger facility. We added the backpack program to help feed hungry kids over the weekend, expanded Kids Cafe and summer feeding through a commercial kitchen, launched the mobile food pantry to deliver healthy, perishable foods directly to communities, and most recently began Farms to Family to further expand available foods to nonprofit agency partners. Weld Food Bank looks a lot different 40 years later.
The first couple years were kind of shaky, but it actually went pretty fast once we got permission and connections with the food industry. That's what caused that building on 2nd Street to be built, and then the next one having, to be much bigger. And then, of course, now the size of it is just kind of overwhelming when I go in there thinking about how we started.
We now have 8 direct service programs, 26 full-time employees, a fleet of 12 vehicles, an operating budget of $4.3 million, and we distribute 13 to 15 million pounds of food to more than 1/5 of Weld County's population every year. From the moment the first boxes of bread and produce arrived at the basement of Salvation Army in 1982 to today, as semi-loads of perishable foods are unloaded, one constant has remained. Weld Food Bank is here to ensure our hungry neighbors are fed. However, we would not be where we are today without the incredible support of our one-of-a-kind community. Every single volunteer, food donor, and financial supporter has made our work possible.
The generosity of this community has always just blown my mind. I mean, really, I think it's pretty unique in some ways to Greeley. Because it's not just the big wealthy people, it's people in general really do participate.
This has been a great community, and it has all sorts of possibilities if people will think about the long term.
There is still work to be done. As we continue to grow, we need your help to ensure that no matter what comes our way, be it a recession, flood, or pandemic, that we can be there to help our hungry neighbors today and into the future.
All right, so that's it's very difficult to get all 40 years within a 5 to 6 minute video, but gives you a good, really good picture of how a nonprofit is successful, and it really does start with community. I mean, you saw there at the very beginning, we were in a small little 1,000 square foot building with one part-time staff member, and now we are where we are today. And so there's a part for everyone to play within a community, within a nonprofit, that everyone's role as we expanded, and we found that we needed someone in charge of programs, we needed someone in charge of our transportation when we moved from pickup trucks to box trucks. People, when we built our kitchen, we didn't obviously have a chef on staff. So there's just always been times where we've had to expand our reach. And even now, as we hire, we're hiring people that don't necessarily have nonprofit degrees, but they have equal experience that helps them be able to do those jobs. So really with a nonprofit, while there are degrees you could get at like Regis University and other places where you can get nonprofit management, those are very helpful. Several people at the food bank have those, but again, that's not necessarily needed to be able to work at a food bank and make an impact in your community. So next, I want to just go over some of our programs and what we do. And actually, I should ask, how much time do I have? I don't want to go too long.
We typically give about 45 minutes, but
Okay.
since we have such a small audience, I mean, I think we're kind of flexible.
Okay. I just didn't want to go long. Like if you're expecting me to talk for 20 minutes, I was like, well, I'm about to dive in. If somebody's not going to raise their hand and be like, people got to go. So, okay,
No, you're good.
that's good. Okay. So let me do another screen share. We'll go to our presentation here. All right. So, okay, come on. So what is Weld Food Bank? Well, we just saw the video. Weld Food Bank is we are the largest hunger relief organization in our county, and we've been serving Weld County for 40 years. So you'll hear things like about food pantries at churches. You might even hear some food pantries that call themselves a food bank. But there's really no other operation like us in Weld County with our 26 full-time employees, with our very large fleet, and our massive 36,000 square foot building. You just won't find that anywhere else. But we've got a very large county to serve. But why do we need a food bank? So in Weld County, 1 in 5 people struggle with hunger, and 1 in 4 children in Weld County struggle with hunger. What that equates to is about 68,000 people, or 22,000 children, who at some point during the year will find themselves not having enough food to eat. And that's why we are here, because if they have nowhere else to turn but to local pantries or somewhere else, because their dollar isn't going as far as it used to, or maybe they got sick, or maybe they lost their job, whatever it is, might bring someone to the point where they can't properly feed themselves and their families. And that's why we need a food bank. But who do we serve? We serve, the short answer is people like you and me. We're serving anywhere from individuals to families. We serve infants all the way up to seniors. And it's people that really can look and have a life very similar to ours. We have especially been seeing it now. We're seeing people that we have never seen before, that have never needed to use a food bank before. And we often get the comments from some volunteers, especially first-time volunteers, about the quality of someone's car, saying that, man, they have a really nice car, that they're coming in here. But we never know someone's circumstance, and we certainly don't want someone to have to sell their car, have to sell their home, and basically be at the very bottom before they ask for help. We want to help sustain our neighbors so that when they get into these difficult situations, that they have somewhere to go and they don't have to feel like they're totally alone, or that they have to give up everything just to feed their families. And today it's going to be 78, which is crazy for October. But as the temperatures do drop, we do have a lot of families that will be choosing between feeding themselves or turning on their heat. And oftentimes they may not turn on the heat so that they can feed themselves, but that just increases the health risk of somebody getting sick. Now, where do we serve? We serve all of Weld County. You see this yellow star there in the middle. That's where our warehouse is located. But we have 4,000 square miles of our county we need to serve. That's larger than the state of Rhode Island. And we've got to do that from here in the heart of Greeley. But through the help of nonprofit agency partners and through our direct service programs, we're able to reach all of Weld County so that anyone in our area who needs help with food, they have a place that they can go. Now, you will notice in the top northeast corner of the county that we don't have a whole lot of cities there that we're partnered with, but there's also not a whole lot of folks out there. So we do have to centralize a lot of our efforts in Grover, but we are always looking to grow, because in 40 years, we haven't solved hunger. We haven't met every corner, because there's always going to be something new. There's always going to be somewhere new that we need to serve. So we're always working to expand that. Now, how does a food bank work? So first, we get our food from farmers, grocery stores, purchased food, food drives, and through Feeding America. So we work with local farmers, and retail partners allow us to come in and rescue food that is otherwise destined for the dump. Or with farmers, there's tax incentives for them to harvest product that they maybe can't sell to the grocery stores, or isn't as appealing as you might find at the grocery stores, but still tastes perfectly fine. We work with those farmers to save that food, but also purchase food. Right now, we're having a lot of difficulties getting donated food in large quantities. We do have a lot of food drives that happen, and we have folks that bring stuff in, but to be able to meet the need, we do have to get larger quantities of food. And as everyone is being impacted by inflation, we have had to purchase more food. We've actually spent about 4 times as much on food as we did last year, but we're only getting about twice the amount of food that we're getting. So you just see there that we're spending so much more to really not bring in that much money. And then food drives, that's a great way for our community to get involved individually as service clubs or churches or schools. That they hold food drives for us, and that food gets out to our agencies. And then Feeding America. We are a very lone island here in Weld County, but hunger is something that exists throughout our country. And so we work with Feeding America to be able to partner with food banks across the nation and have access to the food that they have. So there's some food banks out there that are much, much bigger than we are, even down in Denver, that serves about half the state and the entire state of Wyoming. We can have access to the food that they have on hand. So when a farmer or a large producer goes to them and says, hey, we've got 20 semi-loads of oranges that we need to get donated, they can put that out in the network, and we can put a bid in on it through a point system and then bring those in, so that no matter what time of year somebody comes to us for help, we can have access to healthy foods like produce. So when that food comes in, it comes to the food bank, and we work with volunteers to get it sorted, safety checked, and into more family-friendly sizes. And then it goes out through our 8 direct service programs and nonprofit agency partners. So last year, we gave out 11.7 million pounds of food, and of that was 7.3 million of it was fresh produce, meat, and dairy. Healthy foods has been a focus of ours for quite some time. And we are a very large agricultural county, but we've always wanted to make sure that when somebody comes to us, they don't just get those shelf-stable items, but they get the things that help really boost the overall health of their bodies, of their minds. Even kids who skip meals for a couple weeks can actually have long-term effects. And so we want to make sure that when they're coming to us, they're not just getting good food, they're getting healthy food. Like Ashley, Shiloh, and Stacy, we met a couple of years ago during one of our Saturday distributions, and those girls just lit up, and you can see they're holding those apples. They just lit up when they saw those apples there. They ran past a pallet of chips we had and everything else. They just really, really wanted those apples. So but it's great to see that that's a focus of kids. Not every kid has that focus, but we do try to prioritize that for the food that we give out. Now we have, as I mentioned, we've got 1 in 4 kids that are struggling with hunger. So that's about 25% of the kids in Weld County. And it's 20% of just individuals altogether. So that tells you right there that kids are so much more vulnerable to hunger. And so actually 4 of our 8 direct service programs are for children. The first 2 are Kids Cafe and Summer Feeding. Last year, between those 2 programs, we gave out over 114,000 meals and snacks to children. And we work with, for Kids Cafe, we'll work with places like Boys and Girls Club, the Rodarte Center here in town. We just recently partnered with Youth for Christ and Salvation Army. But there are all these places where kids can come to for an after-school program, and they have that educational component. They have a safe place to be, but oftentimes they may be going home and not have a meal waiting for them. So we prepare the meals on site and and then volunteers from these places come and pick them up. But then in the summer, we shift that program, because during the school year, a lot of kids have access to free and reduced school meals. Here in Weld District 6, they just approved to pay for the meals for any kid who doesn't qualify for free or reduced school meals. And normally that's about half the kids in Weld County, but it's actually higher here in Greeley. But once summer starts, those meals go away. And so these kids don't have access to these meals, breakfast and lunch during the week. Through summer feeding, we're able to meet that. If you see between the two pictures, we've got these two sets of siblings here, the Spots siblings. We met them in Dacono. They're there every summer and every day throughout the summer, getting a healthy meal. And so it's not folks, again, who are just popping into our community for a couple weeks or they need help and then they move on. It's people who live here in our community, and we're able to get them the meals that they need. One of our other child programs is our backpack program. This provides food over the weekend for children throughout the year. We used to actually just do this during the school year, but when COVID hit, suddenly, kids went off to spring break and then just never went back into the classroom for like a year and a half. This backpack program, we're able to expand it through funding to actually provide them food over the weekend throughout the year. We had partnered with School District 6 to get these out during their off-site meal distribution that they gave. And so we were able to make sure that kids not only had food to eat Monday through Friday, but they had something to eat on Saturday and Sunday as well. As I mentioned, a child who is struggling with hunger and who is missing important nutrition in their lives can actually fall behind their classmates physically, emotionally, and it's not fair because these kids don't have a control over their situation. So if we can get them the food that they need during their most important formative years, we're going to do everything we can. And we have one more program we do for kids. It's much smaller and it works more with individual schools. We set up on-site food pantries so that teachers can come in at any time and access it if they have a child who comes in to school without having had something to eat for breakfast. Now, oftentimes there's not a qualification for this. Maybe a student just did skip their breakfast and they have food at home and the teacher can go in and get them the food that they need. But oftentimes it is being utilized by kids who didn't have a choice, that there wasn't anything to eat at home. So the teachers can go down and grab a juice, grab some granola bars, grab a shelf-stable breakfast. And so these kids have something to eat so that they're not focused on just when's lunch, when can I get that meal? They're being able to focus on the lesson plan. So right there, 4 out of our 8 programs are for kids. But another vulnerable population is our senior population. Many seniors live on fixed income. And right now, and I know we've been hearing it a lot, inflation, but it really is impacting a lot of folks, and especially seniors. A little bit further on, I'm going to actually talk about what we're seeing right now, because since February, we were starting to see a lot more increases. Things had looked like they were actually starting to steady out and go down a little bit, but February and March, there was some sort of turning point where we found more people utilizing our services than even during at the height of COVID. So we've been tracking those. We've been looking at that. And one of the populations that sees continual growth month to month is our seniors needing help. So through our senior feeding program, we're able to give out a monthly box of food this is a USDA program. So they have to have certain income guidelines that they meet. But once they qualify, they seem to almost never fall off the program unless, they strike it rich with the lottery or whatnot, because Social Security never goes up, but the cost of everything else does. So this box of food helps to supplement that. They don't have to choose between whether they need to take this medicine that oftentimes needs to be taken with food if they're going to buy it or if they're going to get some food. This gets them that monthly box of food. And we also give them produce, meat, and dairy products that we have on hand so that they're getting a well-balanced diet for these seniors. One of our bigger programs, and you often won't find this in every food bank. So if you go to visit maybe Food Bank of the Rockies or a larger food bank, they don't have direct services out of their building. We do because we're in such a rural community. And one of those programs is our emergency food boxes, along with our senior feeding program. Folks can come here and they can get the food that they need during emergency situations. So it gives them a box of food that lasts a family of 4 about 3 days, and that's just 3 days worth of nutrition. But on top of that, we then are able to give them the food we rescue from the retail partners, from our farmers, things we bring in through Feeding America. So they're getting maybe about 5 to 6 days worth of food, and they can come in once a week if they need to, as we know that the need is much higher. But we do find that about half the folks who come in only come 1 or 2 times And that's really because they find themselves in just one of those really tough spots. And they just need a little bit of help to get through. Like Ben and Nicole, they in 2008, he lost his job several times, Ben did, because of the recession that happened then. And they had been used to being the ones that volunteered and the ones who donated and all that. And now they were the ones needing help. But we were able to help them through that difficult time. And then once they got back on their feet, we actually had them back in the food bank a couple of years ago. They brought their girls in to volunteer and just to let them see the organization that helped get them through that difficult time. We do have 2 programs that we don't do on site, but these programs really help us to reach all of that large county. We saw the map earlier. And the first one is our mobile food pantry. We've had this program for 10 years. And what it does is it allows us to take the food directly to sites so that somebody doesn't have to travel 30, 45 minutes to get to us. They're already struggling to put food on the table. Can't expect them to then put gas in the tank to try to come up to us to get that food that they need. So we can take this food directly to those communities. When a truck shows up, it is fully supported by volunteers besides the one driver of our truck. So it's a very important program that requires full community buy-in. But that program serves it can serve anywhere up to 180 to 200 households, but we were getting requests from smaller communities like our nonprofit agencies and from low income senior housing that they wanted the mobile food pantry truck, but we didn't feel right to send 10,000 pounds of food to serve maybe 40 households. So we came up with our farms to family. And you saw that in the video, but this truck allows us to set up in minutes to serve smaller communities, but still get them those healthy foods that they need. And last year was our first full year of operation, and we served almost 85,000 duplicated individuals at these sites. So it's a program that needs growth, but it has a lot of room to grow. One of our busier sites has actually become at Ames Community College. And then nonprofit agency partners. These folks are like New Horizon Christian Church. We got a picture of their building here. They not only host our mobile food pantry at their site, but they also have an on-site pantry in Dacono. They run our summer feeding site. These agencies are really our boots on the ground, as we've always liked to call them. They're seeing folks that will never come into our building, whether it's through they don't want to use a food bank, or they go to a church first, or they just live far away. So we work with these agencies. They have access to our food, and we saved them last year $2.7 million in food costs. Now, what's important about that is this partnerships, and the reason why we call them partners is they help feed the people that we can't necessarily do from our location, but then we also help them grow their services. So we work with one of the organizations as a women's place. And so they help women who are trying to get out of difficult situations. And these women often have to leave everything behind, their clothes, their food, everything. We can help to give a women's place all the food that they need. Then they can use their funding to purchase things like bedding and clothing and do other things to help serve these women that are coming to them for their services. And so it's a partnership because people are fed, but also they're able to help, or they're able to grow their impact as well. So what we're seeing right now, as I mentioned earlier, we're seeing actually a lot more folks than we did during the height of COVID. And just in June and July, we served 125,000 duplicated individuals. And since February, we've seen a huge increase, a 36% increase in individuals served through emergency food boxes. Sorry, I'm battling a cold. Just one sec. Oh, sorry about that. I've been battling a cold. I'm actually working from home today. So the individuals, and this doesn't include our kids programs, mostly because the kids have actually thankfully been able to stabilize, but it's really the families, the individuals and the adults that have been needing some more help. Let's get back to that. And as I mentioned, seniors we've been seeing a huge increase with them. We've had a 21% increase in the number of clients that have come to us for that program. And we've seen both of our mobile programs, the largest increase we've seen is actually with seniors. And between August and September, we actually saw a little bit of a drop in everything but seniors. And our mobile, again, continues to see growth as August was actually our busiest month ever through that program. So we were serving about a 32% increase in households and a 23% increase in kids. But by far the largest increase we've seen is that emergency food box program. August, we served over 10,000 individuals, and that is duplicated. So folks who came back to us more than once. And it's a very telling it's a very telling shot of what's going on in our community, especially with folks who have found themselves, they're found themselves usually being okay. They can live paycheck to paycheck and be okay. But with inflation, with people potentially losing hours at work, we've actually seen about a 60% increase in new families who are using our services for the first time. And that's very sad for me to see, just to know that there's so many families who they were able to make it before and now they're not able to make it. But that's why we have our services again, that we want to be here for those folks. And how can you help? So how can now and into the future, how can someone help us? Well, first is volunteering. Over half of our workforce is actually made up of volunteers. We have about 55,000 volunteer hours given a year, which equates to 26 full-time employees. And that's anywhere from helping us at our mobiles to being in our warehouse, helping at special events. All those things help us to keep our staff to a minimum so that we can make sure that the dollar goes even further. And with that, another way to help is to donate financially. $1 provides 3 meals, or another way to think about it, $1 can feed a person for a day. Now that has slowly gone down over the years. When I started, it used to be $1 provided 6 meals, but part of that is the cost of everything has gone up exponentially. Cost of transportation, which with it comes gas, the shortage of CDL drivers, and just the cost of everything has unfortunately caused that to go up. But we do our best to make sure the dollar goes as far as it can. But then another way is actually just advocating for what we do, knowing that there's an organization like the food bank, that there's places that people can go to get the help that they need, but then that hunger is an issue that we can all make an impact in. So if that starts with just learning a little bit more about what we do through our website, taking a tour of the food bank, or volunteering or donating, that you can be an advocate in the community, so that anytime someone comments on hunger, or says they're struggling with it, or they don't understand it, you can be there to give them some information that they need. So that is it for my presentation, and I will open it up now for any questions.
Thank you. I know you mentioned transportation programs director as being 2 of your departments within your facility. What other job opportunities, other departments that you guys have?
So we're divided into roughly overall umbrella. We've got development, and then we've got operations. So within development is my role as communications manager. There's volunteer manager, there's community engagement manager, our grants manager, there's our development assistant who enters in all of our donations when they come in, so we can get someone a thank you receipt. And then there's the chief development officer who oversees that. And then there's operations, which goes anywhere from our warehouse. So we have individuals who work within our warehouse. They control our inventory. One of them runs our distribution room, so they pick what food goes out. And then there's somebody who works with our agencies. There's also we have a couple positions in the kitchen that help us to plan the meals, cook the meals, get them distributed. We have 6 drivers now. So those drivers are going out every morning to our retail stores, to our farmers, picking up those donations, but also delivering food when necessary. There's somebody who oversees them, sets those schedule. That same individual also goes and meets with food donors to either try to get new donations, to thank them, to grow those donations. And then we have somebody who oversees our child feeding programs. So they go and monitor all of our child feeding sites, make sure that we're keeping up with all the health department regulations that we have overseeing us. But that same individual also oversees our agencies, because any agency that comes in to get food, they have to be monitored, they have to be audited, so to make sure that they're properly storing their food. Because there's been, unfortunately enough, examples throughout the years of agencies misusing food, not here locally, but across the network, that has cost us donors through Feeding America. So we want to make sure that everyone is being safe. And then trying to think, we have some administrative roles. So folks We have somebody who works at our front desk, greets everyone, helps sign in volunteers, make sure that we're tracking those hours as well. We have an office assistant who does all of the ordering. So they order all of our supplies, they enter in all of our data for distribution sites. And then we have a CEO. So that individual oversees the whole food bank. And he oversees our chief development officer, chief operating officer. That's our senior management. And then he oversees our kitchen. I mean, everything. It's kind of just the the mind behind the machine, but he really hires to his strengths, so or to his weaknesses. He hires to his weaknesses so that he can make sure that what he does well, he can do well. But then the rest of us, we help to do that as well. I think I covered all those different departments. So I mean, everything within there, like I said, I went to church or went to school to be a pastor, but I was able to use those communication skills. And just being a millennial, I've obviously been able to learn or to know technology. So I didn't know how to shoot or edit video before I started at the organization. So that's another important key as well, is that there's always room for growth. Even when you go to school to get a degree, even if it is within your field, there's always room to grow. There's always room to learn new things and to adapt. And that's what I've really enjoyed working at Weld Food Bank, is they've given me that opportunity, that they took a chance on me. I had no nonprofit experience, but I had a heart for hunger, and they hired me, and I've grown ever since. So there's always a lot of different ways to be able to plug into a nonprofit.
I appreciated everything that you just said, and of course the video that you showed as well. And I found it very inspiring. And so looking at like how far the food bank has come right from the beginning to now, certainly there's had to be challenges and setbacks, and I'm sure that you probably still experience those. So I guess I'm wondering how do you, like, what are some of the skills that help you to persist in working in a nonprofit when there are such challenges?
In all honesty, I would have to say, I mean, I wasn't here during the flood, which was the big setback before the pandemic, but I can honestly say that it really starts with having a strong team, like understanding that when you're working in any organization, when you get hit with something, is that we're in this together. I know that there's other places where the weight can be placed on the one person to solve that, but really to be able to persist through any difficulty is actually to rely on each other. And it's also being patient with ourselves. I mean, one of the biggest skills is we are always our own biggest judges, or and sometimes our own worst enemies. It's just to know when obstacles come, and if we can't overcome them to begin with, that we can be exceptionally hard on ourselves. It's up to us to be able to do this, but to really being patient with ourselves, and to be able to rely on other people. I think one of the biggest things that holds a lot of folks back is not asking questions. Nobody had been through a pandemic, but people had been through other situations. So we were able to ask the questions of folks who've been in that role before, because we're not reinventing the wheel. We're not even inventing the wheel. We're just trying to use the wheel to the best that we can. So that should never feel the pressure to have to come up with new things.
Makes sense. Thank you.
I think a big thing too, actually, that just came to mind, is good time management, because you can have the big challenges like a pandemic, but you can actually have the everyday challenge. And one thing that I'm still working on is just being able to best utilize my time for the day, and finding those things that are most important to start my day. So if there's one or two tasks that I know I need to get done, I need to prioritize those, but then also having things that I want to work on, but I can be interrupted with, because things change from day to day in almost every area of the food bank. I could have a plan one day, and then all of a sudden we've got some off-site event that needs a bunch of photos and videos, but we can also have a truck that wasn't on the schedule that can show up unexpectedly with a trailer full of potatoes, and we have to make the adjustments when we can. So good time management within the nonprofit world is actually key to just avoid being burned out, because burnout can happen here.
Yes, I think we could all agree to that for sure. Ashley, I don't know if you guys had any questions.
Nope, I got everything answered.
Wonderful, wonderful. Gina, if you didn't have anything else,
I actually, one
You
quick
do?
question, in thinking about, we have some North Star skills that we work with our schools.
Mhm.
And over in Weld and Morgan counties, we determined leadership, integrity and communication to be like our main North Star skills that students need upon graduation
Mhm.
from high school to go out into the world, whether career or college or trade. And so I'm wondering if you can choose one of those and speak to that and how it's important in your career: leadership, integrity, or communication.
Oh gosh, I feel like I should say communication because that's my role. But I would actually go with integrity. Every organization has a leader, but it can't be full of leaders, or there's not someone to do that task. Um, so everyone can lead within their own way, but um, as far as it goes, especially within the nonprofit world, integrity is one of the biggest things. Just because you're working with donors, and you've got to lay your heart out on the line. You've got to let them know what the issue is, but you've also got to show that you're being honest with what they give you. We get audited by several different organizations just with the way we handle our food. We get audited every year with our finances. And so we're watched really closely. But integrity is one of our actually core values at Weld Food Bank, because when somebody gives us their hard-earned money to help feed their neighbors, we want to make sure that we're doing that well. And integrity can go a long way. I mean, the reason why we've also been around for 40 years is because we've had great leadership. We've had great people within the roles at the food bank that have shown that we do our job well. We don't do it perfectly, but that we do it well. And the ultimate impact of that is that people go home every day with food that they otherwise would not have had if we weren't there. And I can't say that there would be another food bank, but that if they go to other sources, if they go to the grocery store and they ask if they can get discounts or anything else, they may not have been able to get the help that they could through the food bank. So integrity is really important in that as an organization, but also as an individual. That when you're working with a team, that there's expectations of you within your role, and that you fulfill those expectations, but that you do it in a manner that's not arrogant, that one that's not that causes someone else to be hurt, to have to step over someone. That really, to be successful as a team is to work together as a team. You'll probably always run into somebody in any career path that you can tell they're in it for themselves, and they don't last very long. When you're in it for the team and you want to see everyone succeed, I think that's the biggest sign of integrity when it comes to being in the professional world, whether it's nonprofit or for profit.
Thank you.
thank you, Weston. I love that response. I think that'll really resonate with our kids. So I think that's all we have really for today. We appreciate your time. We appreciate you sharing what you guys are doing over there at Weld Food Bank. It's amazing. And like Gina said, super inspiring. So we just appreciate you being here with us today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.